There's been a lot of talk in the news about youth violence, the high rate of divorce among couples, business conflict in business, and retraining young people who are coming out and old people who are coming out of prisons, and also helping those who are sick. We have a lot of people who are elderly now, and I think the best tool that we have to do critical intervention to help people sort out the garbage in their life is genograms. Genograms are different. They're similar to doing a family tree, because you have the father and the mother and then the grandfather, and you can say, yeah, well, my brother's an alcoholic and my father was an alcoholic, and you know, you trace the family tree and you find that alcoholism runs in your family, just like but there are sociological problems that people inherit, not because it's in their DNA, it's just because that's the way they live. You know, you saw your father or your mother fight, so when you get married, that's how you fight. You know, some people fight inside the house, some people take it all out in the street. Those are sociological conflicts. And then there's some DNA that we inherit from our parents. Our eyes, our skin color, and even parts of our own temperaments that we get from our parents. A genogram is good. I used it when I was a prison chaplain. I used it when dealing with a lot of angry inmates, and it was real tough. I used it when I was in the hospital as I was evaluating and looking into family histories of patients. I used it when I taught at an alternative high school here in Detroit, and it was very, very interesting to hear what the students had to say. I used it when I was teaching a sociology class in the university level, and I used it when I was teaching teamwork, collaboration, and conflict resolution. I was trying to show my students that if you can solve the conflict in your own family, you are much better informed of solving conflict in the world. And so genograms are similar to the family tree, but they differ in this one respect, and I'm about to demonstrate it right here. It's a physical talking out of your family. And when people do this, they get emotional, they get quiet, they start to cry sometimes. I've had some young ladies who was in my sociology class, they just came up to me privately and they just said, Dr. Robinson, I can't do it. They would have everything written out on paper, but they couldn't get up in front of the class and do their genogram, not because they were ashamed of their family, it's just that the emotion that was involved. And then there was some underlying issues also. Some of them have been raped. Men and women have confessed in doing their genogram. Yeah, I was raped by my uncle. I was raped by my father. So genograms are, you have to facilitate a genogram, the person, the facilitator, has got to be quiet. And this is the point, that if you're quiet enough, and if you let people tell their story, they'll lead you directly to their pain. So I put up here a genogram, and I just made up this family, and there's certain rules that you have to follow. The square represents the father. The circle represents the female, okay? So you got all these squares represents male, all of the circles represent the females. Now here's the father and here's the mother. Let's say the father died. I'm going to put a big X up here, all right? This father has died, and I'm going to put up here in the corner that he died, let's say he died in 2011. So I'm going to put up here 2011. The mother is still living, okay? These two equal signs right here, they're equal signs, that symbolizes that they were close. They were a close couple, okay? They had 1, 2, 3, 4 children. These blue lines, 1, 2, 3. Forget about this one right here. This girl right here got married. So they have 4 children. The oldest one is 40 years old. You probably can't see that. She's 40 years old. The second child is 25. The third child is a girl, 25. And the last child, long time later, here comes the youngest one, who's 13 years old. Okay? The 25-year-old boy and the 25-year-old girl are twins. So I put this like that. That symbolizes they're twins. And you can see that they're very close. Now the girl twin and the youngest, who's 13 years old, you see that I have 3 lines. They're too close. Why would they be too close? She may be sleeping with her younger brother. All right? That's an issue. That's a family stuff, okay? And say, for instance, that this guy is doing his genogram. He may be reluctant to say, yeah, I was sleeping with my 25-year-old sister, but now that he's, you know, doing a genogram, he may get real quiet about it. Because it's a shame. You know, it's a shameful thing. But let him tell his story. I'm not going to rush in and stop him. I'm going to let him just be quiet and let him tell his story. Now this is just supposing, okay? But now you see this line right here, the zigzag line. That means that this guy had a rancorous or a bad relationship with his mother, okay? And let's say he started drinking because he feels real bad, and say but you know what you find out, you start digging into his mother, you will find that his mother is an alcoholic. You know? And so part of the alcoholism may be part DNA. He may be an addicted personality like his mother, and he's drinking because he's sleeping with his sister, and I mean, it gets kind of crazy. Now you see this 40-year-old, this is the oldest one, she's 40 years old. You can see I have no relationship there between the 40-year-old and 25-year-old. I just kind of left that blank, you know. But, you know, 40 years old, 25 years old, that's a long, that's a lot of years. So they may not have that much in common. But let's just say, for purposes of our discussion, that these two people were close, okay? But look at this. She's 40 years old, and now she goes and she marries a 27-year-old boy, man, okay? He's a player Mac, and you see these dotted lines? That means that their relationship is broken, all right? She probably went out, married some young guy, the young guy old enough to be her younger brother or younger sister, and then they had 2 kids. From this relationship, she gets married to a 27-year-old. From this relationship, they have 2 kids, 2 boys. You see this darkened in? That means that this child was dead at birth. A stillbirth boy, all right? Stillbirth. That probably caused some tension in their relationship. He's still out partying, you know, because he's 25 years old. She's upset because her firstborn son was born a stillbirth or dead. Maybe it was over the years for her. I don't know. But it causes tension in the family. We can go on and on and on, but those are the basic, that's how you do a genogram. And there are other things you can put in here. If they got a divorce, eventually these 2 couples may have gotten a divorce, so I will put a line there, and I will put a D, means divorce, and I would say 2000, let's say they got a divorce in 2012. They got a divorce right after her father died. And he probably never approved of this guy. He's still hanging out in the bar. He knows nothing about, I mean, he's hanging out with these guys. And he's way down the line. He's not even 13, he's only 13 years old, but that's his story. Now I could tell that, now if I did a genogram from his perspective, he would probably say, well, you know, I just married her for her money, or I married her because we met up at the bar, and yeah, our marriage broke down after my first son died. That's probably maybe all he wanted was a son. you know, and his son died, and he's not equipped, 25 years old. He may not been able to equip emotionally to deal with that issue. So what I'm saying, people, is that I found Genograms to be real good for church ministries. Because between the age of 15 and 25, the frontal lobe of the brain is least developed. You have a lot of angry young people out there in the street. White, black, Hispanic. That's the age where they get into gangs. That's the age where the incarceration rate puts them in youth homes and all that kind of stuff. And the Genogram is a good way. I use it. I'm not telling you something that I've done. I've done it, and it's very difficult. I've had students come up and they say, yeah, my daddy had 10 kids by this woman and 5 kids by that woman, and I'm the youngest, and my daddy was sleeping with my younger sister, and all that kind of stuff. All that is under the one roof in the family. And then you get into homelessness, and you get into all kinds of things. But let me tell you this. When you do a genogram, you let people speak for themselves. They will lead you directly to their pain. And if they get quiet, and they're doing their genogram, and they get quiet, you know, they do like I'm doing now, you don't rush in with an interpretation. Well, why did this happen? Why, you said you were close. And you don't rush in with an interpretation. You just be quiet. Because sometimes these symbols will change. One day, this guy may stop drinking, and he may get very close to his sister. He may reconnect with his older sister. You know, she may be at one day, she may be able to reach out to that 13 years old. And so a genogram is a present, it is a current event. All right? This is not locked in history. One day mom's going to die, you know, and then they may be fighting over the money, and she may, you know, do this and do that. All kinds of things happen, and relationships in families change. And so a genogram is good if you're doing pre-marital counseling. It's good if before you go into a divorce situation. It is good if you're dealing with older people. It is good if you're dealing particularly with young people. It's good in schools. It's a powerful weapon for church ministries. You just can't just throw the Bible at young people and say, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. That ain't going to work. You got to let them find God and find Jesus on their own. And sometimes it's a winding and a very, very ugly road. And as a facilitator, you have to be able to listen to it. And don't forget to do a genogram on your own life. Okay? So, that's all I wanted to say. It's good for police-community relations. It's good for anger management. It is good for couples retreat. Don't forget, between the ages of 15 and 25, that frontal lobe of the brain is least developed. So this is a very powerful weapon to use in our jails. I mean, I see counsel people talking about youth violence and what are we going to do about it? We need to lock them up and put them in jail. Guess what, folks? This don't cost you a penny. How much is this costing me to sit up here and tell you about my family? And if I don't want to do it, then they don't have to do it. One more last thing. Genograms are best done in small groups. Okay? You don't need it. A genogram is not for public consumption. It's not for a big room. It's for small groups. Because if you do it between 3 and 5 people in a small group, then the people who are listening to you do your genogram are going to be sitting there saying, wow, that's the same thing going on in my family. And they'll be able to, after you finish, they'll be able to critique you, and they'll be able to say, you know what, man, this is what I did. Or they say, you know what, sister, I had the same problem. This is what I did. So genograms are real powerful in small group settings. So I hope that when you think about the problems in the world, and you think about starting a business, do a genogram. Find out who's going to be on your team. If you're getting a business partner, have them sit down, man, at the restaurant and say, hey, man, let's just tell me something about your family. That's all you got to do. Tell me something about your family. And people would love to talk about their families. They love to talk about the good things, and if it's intimate enough, and if you're a trustworthy individual, they'll tell you about the dirt. But you know, it has to be done in small, intimate settings. And I think, again, this costs nothing. You can write a grant to do this stuff. and it'll go a long way in solving some deep-seated problems among young people and old people, married people. It's a very good weapon or tool for churches and other institutions where we deal with conflict management. Thanks a lot.